There are three things you can watch endlessly: oil refineries burning in the swamps, Russian propagandists loudly throwing tantrums, and Putin being relentlessly and constantly humiliated.
The fool left him with nothing. They just ditched him.
Well, it's not the first time this has happened to us.
Today, we have a hit parade of the latest humiliations for the pale dictator from the Bekele.
They've completely lost their minds, you know.
For years, the entire propaganda army has been building up the image of a macho man and the planet's top alpha male for this unremarkable, utterly charismaless bag carrier.
First of all, Putin himself has never really needed any kind of luxury in his life. That's simply not cool or appealing for him. He definitely doesn't have time to play with toy cars, sit around in a home casino, or smoke hookah. Putin doesn't smoke at all. For his birthday, for example, he might go off into the taiga dressed as a forest ranger or head out to the wilderness to go fishing.
That's true.
And Putin is definitely not obsessed with toilet brushes.
Our president, let me say something obvious, is a good person. Just a good person. A good and kind person.
Billions of dollars and millions of medals for services to the fatherland have been spent on creating the image of a great geostrategist and master manipulator.
The Order of Honor has been awarded to Vladimir Rudolfovich Solovyov, radio and television program host.
But in the end, Putin is always left in the role of someone who is offended, deceived, and spat upon.
I want to send a huge and heartfelt greeting to our great and esteemed friend, the President of Russia, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. Little Johnny, you filthy mutt, you walrus-faced dog. There is simply no place at all on our beautiful, wonderful, and cherished land for such a miserable, pitiful creature, such a freak as you.
Putin dreams of the glory of past dictators, wishing his wisdom would be compared to Marcus Aurelius, that people would admire him like Napoleon and fear him like Genghis Khan. But the one he has come closest to is Hitler. And even then, today's Putin is the equivalent of Hitler on April 30th, 1945, about half an hour before his suicide.
My head is already splitting from all these maps. Ancient Rus, the Mongol invasion.
Allow me just for 30 seconds or maybe a minute to give a brief historical reference. The Austrian General Staff very actively began to promote the ideas of Ukraine and Ukrainization.
Nine!
A pathetic, delusional old man with a prolonged midlife crisis that's gradually turning into dementia. Putin is a moral and intellectual cripple. And he's the only cripple in the world that you can and should laugh at.
Like in the Soviet army nowadays. No, not in the Russian army, but in the Soviet one. You know how it was? Two servicemen come in. One has a headache, the other has a stomachache. They split a pill in half. One gets one half, the other gets the other half. Go on, take your pills.
But he's a good, kind person. He's making weird faces.
In third place is Putin being humiliated by his own minions. Criticizing, as they call him, the Supreme Commander-in-Chief has become a real trend among Z-patriots. Some people are dragging Putin's face across the table in a veiled way, criticizing some abstract Russian authorities.
I think we went in completely unprepared. Our uniforms were stolen. You get camouflage pants, but you have to buy the matching jacket separately, just around the corner. When we started taking mobilized men into the ranks, we dressed them in old, outdated helmets and handed out Mosin rifles from storage. What is that supposed to be, really? Is this not a mess?
And some people aren't shy about openly criticizing Vovochka with his own suitcase.
In the course of the war, it became clear that without the willingness and ability to adapt, it is impossible to truly adapt to changing circumstances. The army can't be healthy or function properly when the whole system it relies on is sick.
A war like this leads nowhere. It's pointless. This current campaign in Ukraine, this is not how you liberate. What we're getting...
It turned into an illustration of the famous sad saying, "May Putin help you."
Dissatisfaction in the Z community is growing exponentially, and you can already start placing bets on when the next March for Justice on Moscow will happen.
How much longer will we send our boys into pointless attacks? For ruined houses we've lost I don't know how many hundreds of soldiers. It's absolutely pointless. I just don't understand when finally all of this will end. And it's not just a month or two. This has been going on for an incredibly long time. Is it really possible that no one can check what's happening there?
In second place is His Majesty, the Emperor of the American Empire, Donald Trump, the owner of a saluting billionaire and an incredibly transparent hairstyle, on the very first day after the inauguration, pointed Putin to his unflattering place.
Trump didn't even do it verbally, but instead simply wrote a tweet on his social network, a tweet that can be directly and unequivocally qualified as an ultimatum to Putin. And this is something that no one expected, least of all Putin himself. He practically called Putin a fool. He said that he started a stupid war. Well, the person who starts a stupid war is an idiot himself.
Trump, like a school disciplinarian, scolded little Vovochka for bad behavior and gave a tough ultimatum. Either Putin stops the war, or he will face consequences so severe there won't be money left not just for the army, but not even for curtains in the classroom.
I am going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to lower oil tariffs. Honestly, I'm surprised this wasn't done earlier, before the elections. After all, if the price of oil drops, Russia's war against Ukraine will end immediately.
The tone with which Trump addressed Putin is truly humiliating. Even the cranes he once flew with shed a tear. And what can we say about the regime's chained beavers? The propagandists nearly choked on their own outrage.
You can't talk to Russia like this.
What do they think those are, moles?
Who thinks that?
Here, let me see. You're in the crosshairs.
Yeah. And don't stick your neck out. I just want to say that today, maybe, well, I don't know, maybe our president should also start an account and reply to things there. Who the hell knows? He will respond. Best is let a good wind blow on Novaya Zemlya.
What? You don't like Novaya Zemlya? They could blow something up elsewhere. London.
London is a whole different story.
Why is he picking on Novaya Zemlya?
How can you talk to great Russia like that? They ask themselves. It's actually simple. Propaganda itself invented the idea that Russia is Putin. So, if Putin is an asshole, then Russia is a three-letter word.
Logical, isn't it?
But the most astonishing thing is that, against the backdrop of rabid propagandists and drunken generals, the Russian Führer himself couldn't give Trump any coherent response. Instead, he mumbled he was ready to negotiate. In other words, he caved to Uncle Donald.
Yeah, when you want to live, you'll do even more than that.
We are ready. We have always said, and I want to emphasize this once again, we are ready for these negotiations. With the current President of the United States, I have always had businesslike, strictly businesslike, but at the same time pragmatic relations. I can't disagree with him that if he had been president, if his victory hadn't been stolen from him in 2020, then maybe there wouldn't have been this crisis in Ukraine. Subtitles by Dima Torzok.
Putin wiped his face and hid behind Peskov's mustache. Where did the macho man from the submarine and the terrorist flusher in the toilets go? Science does not know.
He vanished.
Putin always buries his head in concrete in all difficult situations. Only when everything settles down does he crawl out with a steady voice, quack about how he outplayed everyone and that his humiliation was actually planned and went exactly according to schedule.
European leaders in phone conversations with me said that it is impossible for Ukraine to sign a peace agreement. As one of my colleagues put it, I think I've already mentioned I'm even with a gun to your head. I said, yes, all right. And what needs to be done? The troops need to be withdrawn from Kyiv. Based on considerations of preventing serious bloodshed, a major war, we ultimately agreed to this.
What the hell are you even talking about?
We were right outside Kyiv. We could have entered Kyiv at any moment. This is a misconception that I encounter very often. And as a witness to those events, I am ready to refute it. And when our convoy was moving, I counted 6 columns of burned out armored vehicles I saw soldiers burned inside. They hadn't been removed or evacuated yet. Then reports started coming in from the front lines, from Hostomel, Irpin and Bucha, about the bloody carnage that had begun there. They were waiting for us there. And with only small forces, put up such fierce resistance that we were drenched in blood.
And in first place on our hit parade, of course, is the Ukrainian armed forces. But they will share the award, drum roll, with Putin himself. And Kuruk, even though he claims to have been raised on the streets, even though he commands an army of convicts and is himself the leader of a criminal organization, still doesn't stand by his word. Remember how pompously he signed Russia's new nuclear doctrine? He almost wore out his pen, as if to say, if even a single missile or drone enters the swamp, that's 8 nuclear Armageddon riding on the back of the apocalypse.
The conditions under which Russia would resort to using nuclear weapons are clearly defined. We will consider such a possibility as soon as we receive reliable information about a massive launch of aerospace attack weapons and their crossing of our state border. I mean, strategic and tactical aviation aircraft, cruise missiles, drones, hypersonic and other flying vehicles.
Scouts, of course, got scared, and even a little Biden. It seemed like the Kremlin macho was back in the saddle and shirtless again.
And now, guys, this is our doctrine. So what? Will your horse crack under the pressure? What are your eggs made of? Titanium, steel, or just like everyone else's? Let's see then.
The Ukrainians didn't crack, and the very next day they launched a massive and highly coordinated missile and drone strike, directly targeting the storage depots and command posts. There you have it, and the phrase, I got it on camera, it's all gone to pieces! The Buggenbin-Führer had to respond somehow, so that the ink spent on the new nuclear doctrine wouldn't go to waste. So he asked to hit back with at least something. Russian scientists scratched their heads and decided to fire an old intercontinental missile, loaded not with a warhead, but with discs from a Lada Kalina. They called this unparalleled device the Oreshnik.
Under combat conditions, they also conducted a test of one of Russia's newest medium-range missile systems. In this case, it was a ballistic missile equipped with a non-nuclear hypersonic payload. Our missile specialists called it the Oreshnik.
Wonderful. Amazing. Brilliant.
Putin practically blossomed after the launch of this wonder weapon. He started shouting that this is a doomsday weapon, even more terrifying than a nuclear one. And now, for sure, if even a single small drone flies into Russia, the Oreshniks will wipe Ukraine off the face of the earth. He even suggested an experiment in the style of the Nazi Dr. Mengele.
To conduct some kind of technological experiment, well, let's say a high-tech duel of the 21st century. Let them designate some target for destruction, say in Kyiv. They can concentrate all their air defense and missile defense forces there, and we'll strike it with the Oreshnik and see what happens.
Why did they even let him out of the hospital?
But the result of these threats for the Moth was disastrous, and, as you might have guessed, very humiliating. After the Oreshnik, Ukraine began shelling the Russian Reich even more frequently and intensely, and now massive bombings of Russia are happening every day. Even the Z propagandists have become discouraged and admitted that now Ukrainians are shelling Russia at least as much, if not more, than Russia is shelling Ukraine.
Why hasn't a damn thing really been done? Who is responsible for this? The managers partying in Courchevel, happily singing songs, and their relatives, for crying out loud?
Putin can't stand by his own words. He was publicly humiliated and put in his place. Ironically, no one actually forced him to make such empty ultimatums at all.
I never said anything like that.
The macho image has absolutely vanished these days. No one is truly afraid of Putin anymore. As a matter of fact, moreover, he's now become nothing but quite a complete laughingstock. With all his so-called red lines and so-called wonder weapons,
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.